Welcome back, Falcon family, to part 2 of the Crossbell Community Rankings. It's great to see you guys back, and now we'll be delving into those characters that you were fairly indifferent about. I will say, there were a few shocks for me here. Without further ado, let's go. Starting us off at number 34, we have the aide to President Rocksmith and Office Director of the Rocksmith Agency, Kiseki Ruan. Kiseki is first seen in Zero no Kiseki chilling at Tangerine Gate and then tripping up an old lady. There is context to that, don't worry. As a key member of Calvard's intelligence division, Kiseki has various run-ins with the SSS disguising herself as an entertainment producer. Kiseki swiftly gets to work ascertaining the situation in Crossbell and later acts as a key ally to Rocksmith during the trade conference. As expected of a high-ranking member of her nation's intelligence division, Kiseki is easily able to divert attention away from herself, but is also open to exchanges of information with the likes of the SSS when the situation becomes dire. Like, say, the revival of the Septarian? Despite her act, however, Kiseki is not adverse to acting seriously when the need arises, utilising her mastery of the Taito style and her chakrams to those that oppose her. She's also quite perceptive, able to realise that the role of the ruling president of the independent state is merely a show, and thus pointing the SSS to the true mastermind. Honestly though, she doesn't really get too much to bite on in this duology, and I was contemplating leaving her off the list completely. But for her integral role as a member of Calvard and tripping up old grannies, she gets her place on the list. It's not inaccurate to surmise that Kiseki has been put away in the Trails drawer for a larger role in a future arc. At number 33, we have Wald Wales. Disclaimer, I love the Welsh, I'm a big fan of their food and their friendly people. Thus, it pains me that this guy has the same last name as that awesome country. For me, Wald is the worst character in Trails, bar none. Initially, I'm not a fan of the characters who look for fights just for the sake of fighting so they can stroke their ego or cry when they lose, but Wald takes this to another level, because he just straight up sucks at fighting. He gets beaten down how many times? And he doesn't gain strength by training or through hard graft, he does it through the sweet temptation of Gnosis. So in other words, he cheats with steroids. And he still loses. Yes, I do feel sympathy for his position. He had a drunkard father who eventually passed away, was left to fend for himself in the downtown district, and saw strength as the only salvation. That's fine, but the guy is still messed up. The biggest issue for me is that I cannot forgive this guy for attacking his own subordinates, the ones who looked up to Wald and who also had similar backgrounds to him, people who he should be able to resonate most with. But nope, he abandoned it all for power. And to make matters worse, he is now a member of the church in some unknown capacity, so he is definitely coming back in the future. He's got a lot of grafting to do to get back in my good books. For every eccentric bloke, there's a silent pillar that supports him. Havas is no exception. If this wasn't Trails, I would have thought that we had slipped into the Matrix. I mean, are you getting those vibes? Honestly, there's not much to say about Havas, except that he's the direct subordinate of the Ninth Dominion and that he's been with him since the stigma manifested. In other news, he runs the Trinity Bar in downtown, so he obviously makes a mean cocktail as well. He's a silent giant who is purely dedicated to serving the church and his delegated dominion, and commands a heck of a lot of respect from the Testament's members. That's about it. In truth, I don't know why I included Havas on this list in the first place. But come on, he took on a literal demon during the attack on Crossbell. Bare-handed. That alone makes him cool. He deserves his spot just for that. You keep trucking, my man. At number 31, we have the Deputy Commander of the Crossbell Guardian Force, Marais, who was given her position after the former commander lost his position in the aftermath of the Gnosis incident. Marais is indeed a fantastic officer in her own right, working on the rehabilitation of the troops after their run-in with Gnosis. Her merit as a warrant officer is ultimately why she gained her promotion, but she's not as rigid as the likes of Sonia. Unlike the former, when the State Guard was established, she chose to rebel against the legitimacy of the new independent state, working alongside her former colleague to oppose the Red Constellation. But for all her being a fantastic officer, she cannot push aside her feelings, and at the end of the day she is a true tsundere, vying for the affections of the Red Reaper. Oh, is that what they call it now? She may act cold and distant, but she's very prone to letting her familiarity with this individual slip even during formal occasions, even going so far as to subtly hint that he should stay with the Guardian Force rather than go back to the SSS. Oh dear, maybe this ship will never leave the docks. Bringing us into the top 30, it's Yona Sacred. Yona was once a part of the Epstein Foundation, taking special education as a system engineer, but despite his clear intellect, Yona couldn't help getting involved in pranks. One such prank caused a particular set of research results to end up unfit for purpose, and not being a fan of the discipline that was to follow, Yona decided to run away from the Foundation and stationed himself in the Geofront, where he would have full access to the Infant Orbal network. With his hacking skills, he has since been able to tap into swaths of sensitive information on companies around Zemuria, becoming quite well off in the process as an informant. However, his mischief could only get him so far, as he is eventually tracked down by another member of the Epstein Foundation who also happens to be a part of the newly formed SSS. It's clear that Yona is highly confident in his own ability, and as such he can't stand getting outdone by others, especially the likes of his online nemesis, Kitty. This even extends outside of hacking, as he's also a pretty sore loser in the likes of Pom. That being said, despite his bratish attitude, Yona is instrumental in helping the SSS on several occasions, providing them with information on the likes of the Schwarz auction and the connections of Ravache. There's no doubt as well that upon his return to the Foundation, he is looking to make amends for his previous misdemeanors, and in light of all that, I think this ranking is fair overall. Coming in at number 29, it's the lovable and ditzy receptionist of the Crossbell Police Department, Fran. Fran is one of the first characters we bump into in the game, acquainting herself immediately with the members of the SSS. Fran has a weakness for anything cute, but she also deeply loves her sister, which in itself culminates in my personal favourite side quest in the whole arc. Fran, in her innocence, had managed to find the lost wallet of a traveller from Belle, who immediately becomes enamoured with her. My poor man Anton just can't catch a break. He sets up this elaborate date, gets her a nice gift, and after all of that, he gets brutally shut down. Shut down for the only one that Fran truly loves, her own sister. Oh no! But that's the thing, Fran is so innocent that there is zero malice in what she has done, she simply just has her head in the clouds. But to say she is solely enamoured with her sister would be a disservice to her. She's also a dependable and courageous member of the Crossbell Police Department, working to evacuate other members during the attack on Crossbell, and acting as the single point of contact for the SSS throughout most of the journey. Honestly, I don't think there's a better person for the job than Fran, and I would have liked to see her a bit higher on the list. At number 28, it's the sadistic Marais. From the first time we see her in Zero, it's clear she harbours animosity to anyone who would come near her close friend Ellie, even going so far as to throttle those who she sees as a potential suitor. As the executive director of IBC, she is more than capable in her role, even overseeing the recent development of Michelin Resorts. For all intent, she just seems like a slightly loopy but brilliant businesswoman. This is definitely not the case. Marais wanted the power of the Septarian of Zero to alter and weave the nature of the world itself, and not simply as a fulcrum of Crossbell security. To that end, she was more instrumental in the success of the Azure Zero project than her father, placing the shell at the Schwarz auction, manipulating it into accepting its duty, and eventually assisting in realising its true form. Quite simply, Marais is a selfish individual. She will happily use others to further her own goals. Her mask is well worn throughout the duology, but in the final act of Ao we can finally see her for what she truly is, someone who revels in the suffering of others, especially those she sees as tools. She is a detestable character through and through, but she knows what she wants at the end of the day. Not gonna lie, I had a laugh at the end of Ao where she just brushes off the disappearance of the Septarian of Zero. Considering a similar incident birthed a 1,000-year plan, you would think she'd be a bit more perturbed. But she's not, she just takes it in her stride and moves on to Ouroboros, which in itself is quite admirable. No doubt we'll be seeing more of Belle as the story of Trails progresses. At number 27 we have the bespectacled paragon of justice, Alex Dudley.
Justice.
Dudley is in charge of the Crossbell Police Department's 1st Division, and as such he is highly talented in his role as an investigator. From the moment we see him in Zero, he's very quick to dismiss the ability of the SSS, shrugging them off as nothing more than a nuisance. And thus he starts to get more agitated as his work constantly crosses paths with the junior detectives, as he feels their inexperience is hurting what he sees as delicate operations. However, Dudley is firmly focused on justice, and it pains him that the land of Crossbell is bereft of such a thing. He knows of the innate corruption of the government, the role of the mafia, and even how it has seeped into the police force itself. As such, despite the low personnel numbers of the 1st Division, he feels that his team should do everything it can to maintain peace, which inevitably is a battle that cannot be won by simply fighting on the surface. And though Dudley doesn't want to show it, he slowly gains respect for the SSS as they seem to overcome the barriers that he could not. Despite his standoff nature, he is willing to help those he sees as underlings, which shows a compassionate side to him. At the end of the day, he just wants what is best for Crossbell, and putting aside pride, he knows that he cannot do it alone. Coming in at number 26, we have the intimidating head of the Red Constellation, the War Ogre, Sigmund Orlando. Sigmund makes a foreboding appearance at the start of Ao no Kiseki, watching the train enter Crossbell. After acting as Quizmaster, he disappears but leaves the carnage of his most recent battle bleeding out on the side of the highway. This foreshadowing of Sigmund's strength is not just for show, as he is considered the strongest Jaeger on the continent after the deaths of his brother and the Jaeger King. Sigmund is a Jaeger through and through, and though he loves battle, he will only fight when his duties compel him to, such as during the attack on Crossbell. Wielding 2 great battle axes, Sigmund makes short work of many who oppose him. His imposing nature is not just limited to his ability in battle, however, and he makes it clear on several occasions that he will consistently pursue what is best for the Red Constellation, namely, getting his nephew back on side. And there's no escaping that fact. You either accept or you die. It's an ultimatum, not a choice with Sigmund. You could argue that Orlando is mainly focused on battle, as he openly admits at the club to the SSS, but he has a much more controlled rage, like a grenade that can voluntarily release when he needs to. That semblance of control, along with his imposing nature, makes Sigmund one of my personal favourites among the Jaeger ranks. At number 25, we have the eccentric and driven reporter of the Crossbell news service, Grace Lynn. Grace is driven by one thing, the next big scoop, as evidenced by her desire to be awarded the coveted Pulitzer Prize. And this often gets her in some sticky situations which she is more than happy to dive into. She slowly finds herself more interested in the progress of the SSS as they continually chip away at the corruption of Crossbell, and even brokers several meetings with them to exchange information. It's arguably because of Grace that the SSS were able to save Henry McDowell during the Ark and CL performance. However, Grace doesn't report for sensationalism, she only discloses the truth, which makes her a darn sight better than many real-world journalists. It also makes her a valuable information source for not only the SSS, but the Crossbell Police Department as well. She wants to ensure that her sources are credible and up to standard, and she clearly puts her research in. Her inquisitiveness is eventually rewarded at the climax of Ao no Kiseki, where she accompanies the group to the Azure Tree with every intention of reporting the truth of the incident. Her curiosity, hunger for a scoop, and peerless enthusiasm make Grace a solid member of the Crossbell cast. Just about falling outside the top half, we have the cunning and witty member of the Imperial Intelligence Division, Lecter Arendelle. Lecter is first seen as the SSS make their way to Michelin Resorts, not exactly looking the part of a person in such a lofty position, but this is all part of the facade that Lecter puts on. He even goes so far as to openly joke with those who he should normally be cautious around, disclosing fully his reason for being in Crossbell and who he serves, that being Gilead Osborne. Lecter, like his Calvard counterpart, expertly weaves himself into the happenings around Crossbell and of course acts as the direct aid to Osborne during the trade conference. However, he definitely takes on a more mischievous role than that of Killiker, even evading capture in certain occasions, with quite a bit of ease, may I add. That being said, Lecter is not adverse to providing hints when he needs to. One of my favourite involvements for him comes at the old Revache hideout, where he slowly starts to disclose the role of the Red Constellation. He never fully states it, but he allows the SSS to piece it together themselves. Of course, his words are mainly used to assist Osborne and the Empire, but you can't help but feel there's a layer of empathy in the way he says it. All the way to the end of Ao, Lecter maintains this ever-shifting persona, but at heart, he will always be a bit of a joker, something which he shows quite often during his Crossbell escapade. In line with his role in this duology, I'd say his position just outside the top half is about right for him. Breaking into the top half and ending part 2, we have Sergei Lu. Oh, rap god. Sergei is the current chief of the Special Support Section, acting as their representative within the CPD. Sergei was once an esteemed investigator of the police and was the direct superior to one of the finest police duos ever seen in Crossbell's history. Together with them, Lu would assist in a national operation to end the DG cult, a task that was even taken away from the 1st Division. Now with his 2 subordinates gone, Lu looks to find another way to overcome the barrier surrounding Crossbell by creating and watching over the Special Support Section. Though Sergei may seem shrewd in his advice at times, there is no doubt that his guidance is imperative in helping the SSS become the force that they finally do. Though he wants the group to succeed, he's not afraid to voice his own opinions, either warning them to stay away from something he deems too dangerous, or assisting them when he feels it is required. The assault on the Force of the Sun comes to mind. It's clear that Sergei still holds his former subordinates in high regard, even feeling the need to avenge his fallen comrade, and that high opinion transfers to his new subordinates in the SSS. Sergei, in my opinion, is a fantastic mentor. He doesn't needlessly micromanage, he lets the SSS grow by their own merit, and he allows them to learn from their mistakes. Sergei does take a backseat role in this journey, but that is ultimately how it was always meant to be, and despite that, he's still integral to the SSS. Oh, and you can't forget, he was once married to Sonia. Oh boy. And that is it guys, part 2 is complete. We're now halfway through the list, and very soon we'll be getting into the real meat of this community ranking. Take it easy guys, and I'll hopefully see you for part 3.